Good evening, everybody. This is Administration and Public Works Committee. The first item on the agenda, we're going to go with citizen comment. We have several people signed up. First person is Ruben Azuno from Whole Foods. Is Ruben here? Welcome. Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're seeking to upgrade our license at Whole Foods Market from N to O. Hope I didn't get that backwards. We find it a unique privilege for us at Whole Foods to be able to add this category to our store. We kind of want to duplicate what they've done down the street at the other Whole Foods Market, and we have a trained staff ready to enroll this at Whole Foods.
Actually, you're going to
O
an
to N.
N. Would you like to tell the public what that means?
We're looking to upgrade to carry spirits in our store. We've always had the beer and wine, and we're looking to add that to our category list. For me, it's something that I can't go through a holiday season without making a one-stop shop for my customers. And they can come in, they can get everything, and head on home. And it's just something that we would like to add the category to us.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody here have any questions? Wait, come back. I'm sorry. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Alderman Rain. I just want to make sure that you know that Evanston has its own distillery, and I'm hoping that among those spirits that you would sell pursuant to the N license would include few spirits.
You know what? I'm very glad you bring that up, because that's something we can do, is we can support local programs with that as well.
So far, we just have one, but that would be great.
Yeah.
And numerous breweries showing up.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Next on the list is Junad Rizki, who wants to speak on A 3.1.
Junad Rizki. I'm speaking on this because, as you recall, about a year ago, there was a fire at the water utility in the substation room. At the time, the city was not really interested in giving me the FOIA. And now in reviewing this tonight, this item on the agenda, it points to some issues with the safety of this operation of the substation, which is, my issue really is the safety of the workers. It appears to me the fire was probably caused by lack of maintenance, but since I never really got to see the report, apparently there is a report I can now receive. It's RFP 1325. It was put out for bid, and there's a report there that was given to all the bidders. I'm going to have to FOIA this because it was not posted on the city website. So I can understand really what are all these recommendations that are going on here. But what troubles me, and I want to make it clear to the council, what troubles me about all this is I'm not convinced the city will make safety a priority if these workers are working on this high voltage equipment. Because when you read the small little summary that's been written here, and that's all you really can read, it says that basically there's a 480 volts, and then they have a 4160, which I'm assuming is the substation. So my question is, why we're enhancing the training, but at the same time, I don't know if we've given them adequate training as it is. And that the question this council should be asking is if outside contractors should be touching some of this equipment versus the city employees that may not be adequately trained. Because this is serious. If an employee does something wrong and they get shocked by a transformer in the substation, it'll toast their internal organs. That's how serious this is. So I think the city council has an obligation to protect the workers. Thank you.
Okay, don't go away. Don't go away.
I won't go away.
All of those bidders, whoever they were, did not get a FOIA in order to get that document. So, David Stoneback, where is he? Can we get that document to him without a FOIA? This FOIA is nonsense. Just ask. Go online. Stuff is all over.
Well, it is online, but it's online through a service that you had to be a subscriber to get that.
We're going to get it.
No, I
Could we
understand.
just give it to him?
I'm not sure which report he's requiring.
Well, he's going to tell you. He's
I
going
can
to
tell you right now, it's on.
Just show him. Just show him. We will have to move on.
Well, these are all your documents that are on this thing.
Okay, next is Rob Whittier. Rob, come talk to us.
I apologize. I was just sending you piece through questions from Northwestern's perspective about the bike sharing or bike lane.
Okay.
I'm here to represent Northwestern University. I don't have prepared comments. It's
Okay.
my first time attending.
All right. All right. You're not mad at us about anything?
No, not at all.
All right. All right. That's it for anybody else who didn't sign up? Hearing nobody else. So the first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes, July 22nd. Right? Any comments, any changes? No. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. City of Evanston payroll through July 14, $2,983,335.61, and payroll through the 28th, $2,967,828.82.
Move approval for both payrolls, July 1 July 1 through 14 and July 15 through 28.
Okay. All right. No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have the bills. Could we just take 1 second to take a look at the bills, in case some of us didn't see the answer? This one there. Do we have it?
It's on the.
What's it on?
It's on the, I know it's on the email, because I saw it.
Okay.
Jonathan.
Is Jonathan here?
Yeah, there he is.
Jonathan, could you just, do you have it in writing? Okay. I'm evidently the only one. Okay, thank you. Well, we press the easy button for bills this week. Okay. All right, all those, somebody move the Evanston bills. Alderman Holmes.
I would move that the bills be approved in the amount of $3,239,371.41.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Credit card activity for the period ending June 30th. Anybody have any questions on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alderman Burris, A3.1. I'm going to go around the room again.
A3.1, I move approval of agreement with Greeley and Hanson for the Evanston Water Utility Electrical Study. Go ahead.
Okay, second.
Yeah.
All right, any discussion on this? Dave, do you want to offer anything up, or is this pretty clear?
Good evening, Dave Stomack, Utilities Director. We take very seriously safety at the water plant. Our people are trained in high voltage and do it very safely. OSHA has come out with new regulations requiring labeling that we do not appropriately meet at this point in time. And because of the switchgear fire, we've been working with our insurance carrier, FM Global, for some time to get their specific recommendations on what tests and safety precautions we should take. Those are all compiled into this request for proposal, and that's what we will be having completed for us. And the one thing that we don't currently have now, which is a new regulation, is the labeling of all the devices, and that's what will be completed as part of this project as well.
Labeling
Of our electrical
would-
equipment, specifically what it is and the voltage
the
that it
voltage.
carries.
Okay, all right. Alderman Holmes.
Mr. Stomack, so does this request then have anything directly to do with the fire that Mr. Risky mentioned?
No, when the fire occurred, again, FM Global did a preliminary study to determine the cause of it. Their study, which was shared with Mr. Risky, was inconclusive, but they decided that they were going to reimburse the city for the cost of the repairs, which they have done. And because they elected to do that, they decided not to do the full detailed forensic investigation to determine the exact cause, which would have cost them several $100,000 to do. So because they were accepting the claim as it was, they did not pursue that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments? Thank you, Dave. All those in favor of recommending 3.1 to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, Alderman Grover.
Madam Chair, I'll move A 3.2, which is approval of our final vehicle and equipment purchase for fiscal year 2013, which amounts to 9 replacement vehicles or units in the total amount of $434,165.98, purchased through 3 different entities.
Second?
All right, any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of recommending the purchase to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Alderman Holmes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot we took turns. I thought I had my turn already. Approval of amendments with Schaefer Consulting for project management support service for New World Financial Systems implementation in the amount of $83,950. Move approval.
Second.
Questions? Anybody here from staff who'd like to just give a little explanation of this? Change orders of this size sometimes raise questions.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Marty Lyons, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, this is a large change order. That's why you also don't see the word change order in there when we got to this level. The reason that we're doing this is we've had 2 critical staff in IT leave since we approved the New World contract, and they would have they would have committed so much time to this project. And as the report notes, overall, the finance, the admin services budget will actually be less when we're done. And if you look at the 6-month financial report, year to date, admin services through 6 months is running at about a 40% budget. So we're just trying to stay on task with that ERP system, because that's a killer. If you let it slide, then you lose your training, you lose how you install things. So we're really doing everything we can to stay on task with the project. And Schaefer, in the last report, we noted why Schaefer was the vendor of choice.
Any questions? Hearing none. All right, thank you. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next.
Madam Chair, item 3.4, approval for the amendment for the City Council chambers in room 2404 Cameron Technology Project. Staff is recommending the amount of $97,000, funding to come from PEG fees, $72,000, and $25,000 from our capital improvement.
Any discussion on this? Anybody? Yes.
I just have one quick
Alderman
question.
Braithwaite.
Matt, just in the ECT control room, I can't remember what page it is, there somewhere we're purchasing an HD down converter.
Yes.
And the purpose of, what's it for and what does it do?
Alderman Braithwaite and Chairwoman Rainey and members of the committee, the reason for the down converter is because, as I pointed out to Human Resources or Human Services and the Rules Committee last time, is Comcast can't broadcast in high def. And so it would be to down convert the signal to go back to ECTV and then to be broadcast through Comcast.
Okay.
I heard another concern about this. You know, there's discussion in the community about this. And I was told that the size of the product is going to be so huge that it's going to be an issue for YouTube. Is that true?
Alderman, I do not know that off the top of my head. I can definitely try to answer that question at a later date and in a written fashion to the committee members.
And what about the cables?
My
Remember-
concern has always been the composite cables, the old wiring.
Yes,
With
and-
the upgrade of the new system. And eventually, we will get to the point where we'll be able to broadcast in full HD, and we still have outdated cables.
Alderman, I have asked AVI for a separate quote for the cables per your request at last committee meeting. It just was not ready in time for this change order,
Okay.
Okay. All right.
or this amendment, excuse me.
Go ahead. Anything else? No? All right. Hearing no other comments or concerns, all those in favor of A 3.4, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item is A 4.1, McDaniel Street lighting. Alderman Burr.
Move approval of McDaniel Street Lighting Project Change Order Number 1. Staff recommends that City Council authorize the city manager to execute Change Order Number 1 to the contract for the 2013 Capital Improvements Plan Street Resurfacing Project Phase 3 with A-Lamp Concrete Contractors in the amount of $12,847.20. This change order will expand the scope of the contract to include the construction of streetlights on McDaniel Street. Funding for this work will be from Pedestrian Safety Improvements CIP account, which has a budget of $275,000.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Any discussion? No. All those in favor of recommending A 4.1 to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, A 4.2, Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move A 4.2, which is approval of the Church Street, Evanston Township High School lighting project, change order number 2, for the 2013 capital improvements plan in the amount of $79,802.40, which will be used to include construction of streetlights on Church Street and a number of places on Church Street that stretch from near Mason Park to near the football stadium.
Excellent.
Second.
Excellent. All right, seeing no lights. All those in favor of recommending the Church Street, Evanston Township lighting project change to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, A5.
A5, Resolution 43-R-13, utility easement with Glendale WNB LLC for Trader Joe's development. The easement will be for a 70-year period. No city funding is required for this easement.
Okay. Second? Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of recommending the easement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, boat access.
I move item A6, Resolution 47R13, authorization for the boat access area development BAAD grant application. Staff is recommending City Council approval of the Resolution 47R13, which authorized the city manager to sign the certification statement for the board access area.
Okay. Yes, Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bad grant. Just saying. I wondered what more we could do with the grant besides kind of maintenance stuff. We're doing, the proposal is to do some work on our Church Street ramp, and in addition to the work, the maintenance work that we already do. But are there other things that we can do with grant money such as this?
Staff? Who's our person?
I missed the beat.
Good evening. Stephanie Levine, Public Works. This particular grant program is specific to boat access only, and it's for either repair or construction of boat ramps, essentially. So that's pretty much all it's there for.
And we need this. We need
Desperately.
this desperately, yes. So it'll repair the catwalk, the south pier, the concrete ramp that has become unusable as the lake levels go up and down and so forth.
That's correct.
How many boats do we have launching from this location? Excuse me.
Doug Gaynor, Director of Parks, Recreation, Community Services. Madam Chair, members of the committee, we have over 100 boats that do launch there. In addition to that, the Department of Natural Resources launches their boat there. Both their scientific boats as well as their patrol boats, and so does the lifeguard, the Coast Guard. So they're launching at that facility also.
It's pretty busy for those few months that it's open and operational.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
All right. We need a vote to recommend applying for the grant. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next. 48R13, Alderman Holmes.
Oh, I keep losing my place. Resolution 48-R-13, authorizing the city manager to submit an Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, ITEP, grant application for Sheridan Road and Chicago Avenue bike path. The total cost of this project is estimated to be $1,865,503, of which $492,403 will be funded by the grant, and the remaining $373,100 will be funded by the city's 2014 capital improvement plan.
Any discussion on this? Oh, we have a report. We have a presentation. A good.
The clicker or? Thank you.
Director Robinson is going to give us an overview.
Good evening, Suzette Robinson, Director of Public Works. And I have a few slides. The presentation is in front of you here to describe a little bit about what the project.
Lights are in front of you.
You're going to make me turn the screen down again. Okay, lights, action. All right, ITEP, the grant, this is for Sheridan Road and Chicago Avenue bike path. A little bit about the ITEP grant. It's a federally funded program administered by IDOT, and as the Alderman described, it will be 80% federal share and 20% would be the local match. It includes a bike path on Sheridan Road, which would be off-street from Ridge Avenue to South Campus Drive, along the east side in front of Northwestern University campus, and it would connect the lakefront path and the Wilmette bike system. Okay, actually off-street will only be from Lincoln Avenue to Chicago Avenue. So the scope of this project is along Sheridan Road from Lincoln to Chicago Avenue. And then it would connect to an existing shared road that would be in the street, actually, with Sharrows to connect around to Wilmette. On Chicago Avenue, this is an on-street two-way bike path that would connect Sheridan Road between from Sheridan to Davis Street, and this will connect the Sheridan bike path to the protected bike lanes on Church and Davis. So this is a picture of the Sheridan Road limits, kind of the light green line that you see running all along the campus there. Right now, we have a 12-foot wide sidewalk that we would reduce to 8 feet and install an 8 feet wide bike path with markings, and to separate the pedestrian traffic and the bike traffic, which is now currently sharing the same space on both sides of the street. We would move it all to the east side. And we would create some landscaping between along the curb to kind of channel the pedestrians to only cross at the pedestrian crossings from the east side to eliminate the unsafe conditions and practices currently with students crossing along the corridor. So the impacts to that, as I described, would be reducing the walk path, and we are looking at minimizing the impact to any trees along the area, especially the larger trees, and some of the smaller ones may have to be relocated. And then we're also going to be using permeable materials for the bike path. So Chicago Avenue would actually run between Davis Street and Sheridan Road, and it would actually be a two-way bike path on the street, and that would have it would be a raised median and delineators that would separate the bike traffic from the car traffic on that street, and it would have its own separate bike signal. So that would impact parking. There's some metered parking and parking that without meters along that strip that would be impacted, and we are able to add some metered parking back to the east side on that same strip, and there are no tree impacts involved along this. So let me just say these are just plans that we have right now, and we would actually go out and work with the community once receiving the grant to finalize designs. So there'll be a tremendous amount of public input before we do the final design. And so that's all I have.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Robinson. This is really an aspirational agenda item because it's just to get a grant, which we hope we will, obviously. It's a great way to leverage state funds. What I found is missing from the north-south bike routes along Chicago and up into the North Shore is the Evanston connection. And there's really no easy way to ride from Wilmette, from their beautiful new bike lane. Actually, it's probably 4 years old by now. Am I right? They did Sheridan Road, probably finished it 4 years ago. And the bike lanes on that part of Sheridan Road to our Sheridan Road, which is treacherous for cyclists. And this would be a nice addition. Are we building this protected bike lane? It would be on city property, where we're taking away sidewalk and then adding the bike lane there? Is that city right-of-way or is that university property?
Yes, that's city right-of-way along Sheridan Road.
Mm-hmm. And then, as you said, this would just go from Chicago to Lincoln, and then from Lincoln to Isabella to the real connection to Wilmette and beyond would be using just the shared lanes on that portion of Sheridan Road?
Yes, for right now. We're actually scheduled to resurface Sheridan for 2015. And we have the funding in place to do that. So we're going to be designing that next year anyway. So we thought this was a great time to resolve the bike problem, or the connection, as you described. So we don't know exactly the best way to get from Lincoln to Sheridan Road. When you observe the traffic in that corridor, they do a variety of things depending on who the bikers are. Mm-hmm. So the professional ones stay right on Sheridan Road. Those that are not quite that sure, like me, we go down side streets and figure out our way back to Ridge and on the sidewalk and do all kinds of stuff to connect to the bike lane. So, and I see all sorts of people doing all sorts of different things. So we have the bike plan that we're just awarded the contract, and we're hoping that through that process we'll be able to figure out the best connection with the consultant, and we'll have that in time to make the changes.
Right. In the meantime, we apply for the grant. I think our perception of this bike lane may be that because it's right adjacent to the university's property, that would be primarily for students, but I can tell you that corridor is so trafficked by cyclists from all over. I think there'll be many users of it besides students on bikes. And then you answered my other question about incorporating green infrastructure into it with the landscaping and the permeable surface. Looks like we're checking those boxes too. Great.
Yes, that's correct.
Anything else? Thank you, Director Robinson. All right, all those in favor of recommending that we authorize the manager to submit the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant application? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, next. Alderman Braithwaite, whose turn's next? Take it.
Yeah. Item A6, Resolution 50R13, authorizing the city manager to submit an application for grants funds from the Transportation Alternatives Program to extend the regional bike share system to Evanston.
We have Catherine's here. Hi, Catherine. So we have a motion, and you seconded it, Alderman Grover?
Yes, she did.
Okay. The one thing I would like you to include in your explanation is why is there only one system that can be used? And are there others? Like I'm thinking Bike and Roll Chicago.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Catherine Hurley, Sustainable Programs Coordinator. I did put together a presentation to help complement the staff memo regarding item number A8, the grant application for the Evanston Bike Share Pilot Program. So I think we'll just start off with a brief introduction to what is a bicycle share program to make sure we're all up to speed. Bike sharing is an innovative transportation program that's really ideal for short point-to-point trips. You're able to pick up a bicycle at a station, ride anywhere around, and then dock it back to another station anywhere within the system. And to Alderman Rainey's question, I'll talk a little bit about what that means to be part of a bigger system. Bicycle sharing systems provide people with an alternate to not only driving, but walking and public transit, because sometimes your trip might be just a little bit too far to walk, but not so far that you really want to get out the car. Or you're interested, it's a nice day, and you want to get on the bike, so bike share is another option for you. It also helps to address that last mile situation, helping people, once they get off their transit hub, to get to their final destination. Or if you don't happen to live very close to your transit hub, which could be a bus stop or a train station, it could actually help you get from where you either live or are, seeing a movie or at a restaurant or visiting a friend to get from on the bike then to the transit station. They also help to provide an affordable and easy access to bicycles for people who don't own a bicycle because they don't ride it that much, they could then become a member or a casual user of a bike share system and have the opportunity to ride it whenever they need it. And in communities where municipal governments or county governments are running the bike share program that's open to the general public, people are considering it to be a new innovative public transportation system. Bicycle sharing programs are becoming more popular in the United States. So this map shows you little dots of bicycle sharing programs in the U.S. The red ones are for the municipal programs, and the blue ones are actually for college and university specific programs. So in some cities, the bicycle sharing program actually started and predominantly maintained for universities. So you can see there's a spread of both. And then I've highlighted in the boxes the larger bicycle sharing programs, the ones that have gotten more press, you may have seen information about across Chicagoland as Chicago has ramped up their bike program. But overall, there are at least 20 really large and successful active bike share programs run by local governments or county governments in the U.S., with dozens more that are in the final planning stages. And in addition to the larger metropolitan cities, also smaller cities like Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Cleveland, Ohio, for example, also have bike share programs. So it's not only for the really, really large, New York and Washington, D.C. So how do the bicycle share programs operate? They're easy for both a casual rider and the lifelong cyclist. Each bike share station has some type of kiosk. In the Chicago model, which we'll talk about, it's actually a brand new touchscreen kiosk. There's a station map and a docking system that allows you to release a bike after you've paid. And that's really important, that we make sure that every user, whether it be an annual member or a casual rider, pays for their bike. And the formal docking station ensures that once you dock your bike up, that someone else who hasn't paid isn't going to be able to take that bike. Members pay an annual fee. Casual riders can just pay as they go. So when we say casual rider, it could be a tourist, but it also could just be someone who's not quite sure they want to submit all the information and get the annual membership and the little electronic key card, but they want to use the bike share station, so it could be either. After the user pays, the bicycle is released from the dock. You're able to take it out. You can ride it to around town, anywhere where your destination is, and then you dock it back up at another dock. So one of the keys about the point-to-point trips is that you don't have to necessarily worry about where you're going to park it at a particular place because you're actually going to a dock that's already been established, and there's an online app where you can see how many docks are available, how many bikes there are, plan out ahead of time where you're going to go. So the City of Chicago rolled out their bicycle sharing program called Divvy, and the blue bike is becoming the symbol for that this summer. And as of August 1, there are 117 stations installed. Their goal by this summer is to have 300 stations and 3,000 bikes, and then by next spring to have 400 stations and 4,000 bikes. So related to are there multiple systems, there absolutely are multiple systems. And the folks that we talked to, the staff at the City of Chicago who have been in the throes of this for many, many months, they did a formal request for proposals. They looked at all the different kinds of bicycle share companies, because there's many different companies that each have a similar variety of bike, and they have their own docking stations and their whole package. So the City of Chicago, in evaluating their program, looked at all of those and went with what they felt was the best deal at the time for Chicago. And because of our proximity to Chicago, if you live in Chicago and you're interested in coming to Evanston, you could, if you're a Divvy member, you could ride your bike here. Or if you took the train and you got off and then wanted to go downtown or to Northwestern's campus or to the Civic Center, you could then get on the Divvy bike and ride it. So we will have instant membership because we're going to be connecting to an existing program that has other bikes in other communities.
So if you're a Divvy member, you're a Divvy member
You are
universally?
Yes, ma'am. And the bicycles, although when we would start a new station, you would have a certain number of bikes that would be docked there. That bicycle will then be taking point-to-point trips all over. So it could end up on the far south side of Chicago, on the far west side. The bikes are part of the system, and they can be docked at any station. So we would, if we were to do a pilot program, we'd be helping to create stations and then feeding in bicycles to the station. But they can go anywhere they want within the system. So it gives people in Evanston a whole lot of places they could ride their bike to if we were part of the same system. And on that note, as of a week ago, we already had 61 Evanston residents who said they wanted to be an annual member and paid the membership fee, and over 100 other residents who are casual members, what I refer to as people who want to periodically use the system but aren't maybe committed to providing the money for the annual membership. So just in comparison, the annual membership cost is $75 for the whole year for unlimited 30-minute rides. So because it's a point-to-point, and the stations are supposed to be pretty close together, you can get pretty far in 30 minutes and then dock your bike back. So if you were going to go all over town, you would go all over town on several, maybe 11-minute trips. And in Chicago, the average Divvy ride is between 11 and 13 minutes. So if you wanted to ride along the lakefront and have a really, leisurely all-day-long bike ride, you could use Divvy, or you could also rent a day-long bike rental. This is really more for, I need to make this short trip, or I didn't bring my car to work today and I need to go and run out and do an errand, and it would be too long to wait for the metro, so I'm going to get on the Divvy bike and go from downtown to Central Street, for example. The casual rider has the $7 for unlimited 30-minute rides for one day, and then if you want to do additional time increments, you just pay a little bit more if you wanted to go for an hour versus the 30 minutes. So if you were an annual member for 20 cents a day, you could have unlimited 30-minute rides on a bike that someone else maintains for you, that you can dock at all these docking stations. And for anyone who's ever had a bike stolen, knowing that you're docking it at a system that is really robust and that you don't have to worry about your bike not being there when you come back, bike share is really great for that.
Does your membership fee include insurance against somebody stealing your Divvy bike?
Yeah, great question. So if you dock to the Divvy docking station and the light goes green and it's accepted you, then once you've put it back in the station, there's no liability to you. If you were to take it and stop maybe at a friend's house on the way to your final destination and you leave it in the front yard and you don't lock it to anywhere, then you would be responsible. And I'm going to show you a picture in a minute of a sighting of a Divvy bike very close to us. So similarly to the previous presentation, there's a grant opportunity with the Transportation Alternatives Program, which is federally funded but administered through the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. And the City of Chicago contacted Evanston and said, we are interested. Right now, our grant money for Chicago will only get bikes to Devon Street. We'd like to get more money to get bikes from Devon to Howard, and then it would make sense to get bikes in Evanston. Similarly, in terms of making this regional system, they also contacted Oak Park and said, we would like to get bikes further west to the edge of Oak Park and partner with you to see if we can get bikes in Oak Park. So the staff was contacted. We had lots of great calls, and much appreciated to the Public Works Department for having great brainstorming meetings and trying to come up with what kinds of options there might be. The grant does require a 20% cost match, and applications are due August 20th, which is why there are definitely some details that we haven't yet worked out, because we were just notified and wanted to make sure we at least brought it forth for the committee's input. And then applications will be notified in January whether or not the grant money is received. So because there was a short time frame, and as Director Robinson said, we're just doing the bike plan update, which is something that we can look at bike share as part of our bike plan update. Staff was interested in seeing what we could do to bring Divvy to Evanston, but do it in a way that was a pilot or a stepwise. So the rest of the information is proposing a potential 7-bike pilot program that would allow us to get started, connect into the Divvy system, and then see how the demand was, how the feedback was.
7 stations.
7 stations with 10 bicycles in each station. So this slide shows a preliminary set of locations for 7 stations. Similar to the previous project where more detailed work needs to be done, we're actually not committed to these locations by applying for the grant. We're saying this is where we think we'd like to put them. We definitely want to do more detailed analysis to see what they'll fit, do public input. So this gives you an idea of what a little 7-station pilot could look like, connecting the downtown Davis CTA Metro Station with both downtown, Lakefront, Northwestern's campus, the Civic Center, and then the hospital and Central Street Station. So looking at making sure our largest employers, Rotary, the hospital, Northwestern, and the city are all connected near a Divvy bike station. But we would absolutely further refine these locations, and we're not committed to, they could change over time.
Alderman Grover has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Hurley. It would be helpful to know where Chicago has identified its northernmost stations to be as part of this program. So at our border, where might Chicago decide to locate the stations too?
Absolutely.
Because those would be obviously part of the system and available to residents regardless of which side of that border you lived on.
Absolutely. We would definitely, in the coming weeks and months, work out many more details. The idea that staff had for this pilot would be that we would try to put their stations within a short proximity of one another to keep with that short distance, and that over time we could build more stations so that we actually would be only a half mile from Chicago station. But you could also get, let's say you were on the Divvy, you went to Howard, you got on the Howard red line, purple line, came up to Evanston, then got off at Central Street, and then we were able to get over to the Metro.
Right, and I mean, it's only 2 miles from Howard to Church Street in Evanston, even if you go along Sheridan Road. And it's not hard to ride 2 miles in 30 minutes.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
If you get off at Howard Street, you can't get any place because you have no docking stations any place south. And I mean, how could you present a map like that? I want to know why.
Well, Suzette Robinson, Director of Public Works. I'm going to take that because part of the point of the system is we want it to be successful. And so in order to do that, we have to look at who uses this type of system and where the ridership will come from. And this is not for the casual, necessarily for the casual recreation. It's really about the commuters. You know, once they get to the train station, okay, because Evanston is transit rich and extremely walkable, we had to put this in a place where people would either change their mode of transportation, i.e. I currently drive to the hospital because there's no way for me to get there by train because it's too far to walk from Central Street.
Excuse me,
so that
we
was
also have a hospital on the south end of town. We have a hospital.
And I understand that. And so what the thinking was is that these 7 locations would be the pilot, and then the bike plan update would really give us all of the data that we need to further build out the system, because this is a huge investment for the city and we want it to be successful. And this grant money, the TAP grant, would be available every year for us to go and expand the system. So we wanted to start off with these 7 stations as a pilot, have the bike plan kind of confirm for us where these locations would make the most sense and where to expand it out and how to connect. So that's what the thinking was.
Well, my argument is these are terrible, it's a terrible plot, because you can walk from each of those stations to the other. I really resent that there is no location in South Evanston. If you're implying that people in South Evanston don't ride bikes, then you're totally wrong. How can you get data about people in South Evanston involved in the pilot when there is no station? I'm going to ask that this be held. I want a station south. We have a bus facility and a train station at Howard Street.
Alderman Rainey, if I can, first of all,
if the grant doesn't allow for it, then I think
we don't have to commit to the stations. So what I'm hearing, we can have many different locations.
It is a slap in the face.
And Alderman Rainey, I'll also take some blame because we were all
I don't care. I just want a station. I don't care.
Fine, so you have a station. And so I think what we would suggest, Alderman Wilson's in the ante room with me. The City of Chicago has not picked all of the remaining stations they would have in the north. We've talked that a glaring absence of Dempster at the Dempster station. So we could either rejigger the 7, or another option would be to go to 9 and have one at Howard Street and one at Dempster.
The perfect location would be the city lot at the corner of Howard and Custer. The perfect location.
And how much would 2 additional stations cost? We went from 7 to 9?
So it's, there would obviously be some capital and some
Approximately.
20,000.
Right.
There's an additional $20,000 investment from the city. We could add 2 more, one at Howard and Chicago.
I don't care if you add 2. I just want one of those down there. Alderman Holmes.
Well, it's glaring, there's nothing on the far west
I figured
side as well, but I'm not doing that now. I'm trying to understand. You started out, Ms. Hurley, by talking about the whole regional aspect with Chicago, Oak Park, and Evanston.
Right.
So I'm confused in terms of how then the connection, I said the location from Chicago, which would be our south border, it just makes sense. And it's just that we don't have anything down there.
Sure.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
So part of connecting means that we're part of the same network. So let's say you lived in Evanston and you work in Chicago and you can use it in Chicago, but right now there isn't one in Evanston. So we have people who automatically be able to start being a part of it. Same thing, people who are in Chicago who are like, oh, maybe I wanted to come up to the Evanston lakefront, but I don't want to drive. They could now take the train up, get on the divvy, and go to the lakefront. So over time, we will actually strive. Half a mile is actually the distance that we're striving to get, sort of the maximum distance away. In Chicago, we're actually aiming for a quarter mile because we're a little bit different community. We can have a little bit farther. So over time, we could move that direction. If we wanted to really have, lots of corners of the city mapped, we probably would need about 12 to 15 stations, but we wanted to start with something that was smaller in a pilot.
And I understand that, except that I'm still saying, if you're pushing the regional to sell it, I just don't understand how the connection, because to get from, let's say that Chicago stops at Tui, and then how do we make a connection with Tui? If I'm understanding correctly, maybe I'm not a bike rider, so I may not understand it, but I would think that there would have to be something either farther east, a little bit farther north, or somewhere. It just doesn't make sense to me in terms of how you connect.
If you live at Tui and Clark, you might want to ride your bike to Trader Joe.
Well, that's true. So, but
you can't because there is
and Alderman Holmes, members of the committee.
Alderman Braithwaite is there.
Alderman Holmes said it exactly, and I blew up the map and I was looking to see if there was one downtown Evanston.
Yeah,
at the at the Maple Street station, where a lot of people park their cars to get on the Metro.
Right.
I can't tell from this map, and
And we were shooting for the Davis.
I would say Davis, okay.
Where exactly would be. Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, Ms. Hurley's original proposal was 14. And when we looked at the match associated with this and the potential cost to the city for ongoing maintenance, it was our judgment that 14 was too many for a pilot. And so what we tried to do was we tried to look for locations where we thought that there would be success. And the locations that we have there, we thought would actually have riders on a regular basis. In our subsequent discussions over the weekend and this evening, certainly 2 other locations make sense, as Alderman Rainey said, somewhere in the Howard Street area, and then also at the Trader Joe's location. So somewhere either at the Dempster L station or somewhere nearby. Our concern again was the match. Our concern again was our costs for operations, which could be anywhere in the $60,000 to $80,000 range annually, and that's a new expense for the city. And so while there are credits against that for usage, ultimately we would have to make sure that there was enough usage to cover costs, and if there was not, then the city would be on the hook for that. So I think if the committee is feeling this is a good thing, and I think from your comments you're indicating this would be a good thing for Evanston, then really the question is what is the investment we're willing to make in this pilot area? Certainly if we went to 7 to 9, I think that makes sense. Again, I think to go much more than that until we know we have a success. Catherine has a photo of a divvy bike that was spotted on Church Street over the weekend. So that is a fair way from any divvy station, but it was on Twitter over the weekend, which I saw, so people are using this. I think it's just a matter of balancing how much city resources we want to put into this in putting these bikes in places where we know it'll be successful.
Well, I'm not asking that we add one more station. I'm asking that one of those be moved to the south end of town. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking to spend $40,000 more of the taxpayers' dollars. Yes.
I guess my question is, and you're right, if I was to look at this, kind of what you're saying to Evanston residents who are paying attention, that only the folks in that side of town are interested in doing the program. And I think that from what I'm hearing, I would like to see it spread out a little bit more.
We don't have a chance.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the thing. We don't necessarily have to add more, just spread them out.
Our concern was that these are going to be trips to a destination. And so we were trying to find destinations where you would pick up a bike in one destination, then go to another destination. That this is likely not a round trip type thing, all necessarily in the 30-minute time frame, that there needs to be a destination. So again, if it's the committee's desire to keep it at 7 with 1 or 2 further south, we will work with the City of Chicago. If successful, we'll come back to you with a map that is more, that distributes them more evenly. Quite honestly, I think that 9 might be also worth your consideration, so that we could have one at Dempster, as well as have some latitude as we move them around.
Would you like to take this back and give it some thought and before we meet as a
cannot.
council? No, I mean, and handle it today. Because I'm perfectly happy with 7. If you think that putting one on the south end of town is going to screw up the whole project and, you know, just blow it out of the water, then add one for me. I mean, give me a break. But otherwise, I'm happy with moving one down.
And we just,
I don't think we're
and we
going to
just want it to
ruin
be
the, I don't think we're going to ruin the test.
And again, Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, it's never been about ruining anything. It's been about balancing the numbers and the cost to the residents of Evanston to do this. That's all.
It's about who would ride a bike, and you're saying we wouldn't. All right. Alderman Holmes, Alderman Grover, let's not beat this anymore to death.
Well, I don't want to
Go
beat
ahead.
it to death, but the city manager said something else that just caught my ear. You said maintenance would probably be approximately maybe $80,000 a year. How many bikes would that be? Because that's...
I have some more slides. Would that be helpful?
Okay, yeah, maybe. I was trying to read it here to see if I could find it, but it doesn't...
Okay, Alderman Grover, do you want to add on to that?
Per bike?
Your light was on.
That's just for the installation, yeah.
So if you go to the slide that says estimated capital and installation, so the capital cost per station is the $62,000. So this includes 10 bicycles, the docking station that could actually fit 12 docking points, the electronic kiosk, as well as the 24-hour call center, and all the infrastructure needed to the online app to get the system going. So the cities, if we did 7 stations, the cost match would be the $94,500.
So that's like $6,000 a bike?
So the actual bike itself that we've seen in a few of the photos, let me go really quick to. The bikes themselves are about a $1,200 bicycle.
Oh, okay.
Can you guys help? The part of the reason why the bikes are more costly than a bike that you or I would buy is because, firstly, they're designed to be able to be all-weather because they're going to live outside, docked at a docking station. So they're a unisex, all one-piece steel frame. And then they also have all of the wires and the parts that make the bicycle work all embedded and hidden inside the frame. So again, we have them staying outside to help prevent and deter theft and vandalism of the bikes. They also have the built-in front light, the rear light that start working when you pedal. They have the bell and the basket. So the durability, it's sort of like a tough book laptop. It still pretty much functions the same, but it's designed to have the wear and tear and to be able to stand the test of time for about 5 years. So this is an example of a picture of the bikes in this docking station. And even I think at this view, you can see how solid the bikes are. Actually, the city engineer, Rajiv Dahal, and I actually went on a bike divvy tour about 2 weeks ago. And when you get on the bike, it feels very solid. So for the rider who doesn't have the super light bike at home and wants something and wants to make sure they're comfortable, that's what this bike is for. So the docking station, the kiosk, all the wires, they all have GPS coders so that if you, to Alderman's point, if someone walks away with your bike and you report it stolen, then they can go and find it. So all those costs are embedded within that overall cost. So even though the bike is not $6,000, it's sort of everything that's needed to support the bike.
And what progress have we made in getting sponsorship from the hospitals and Northwestern, et cetera?
Sure. So staff and I did go talk with Northwestern University, and they're very interested. They've actually been independently looking at bike share for the university, and so we haven't gotten a firm commitment, but they are definitely interested in supporting the project.
Would they be using the divvy system?
We have proposed one location by campus, so the intention would be it will be available for them.
Northwestern's looking into a bike share system, you said. Are they going to use?
So if we were to bring, the city of Evanston were to bring divvy to Evanston, then Northwestern's bike share of choice would be divvy. Because again, similar to Evanston picking a different system than Chicago, there wouldn't be a real benefit to bring a completely different type of bike share system to on-campus locations. If we were then, in order to connect to the divvy station in Chicago, it would be all the same system.
And they shared with you that they would only be placing the docking stations on campus?
So in the pilot, we had identified one location on the edge of campus.
If Northwestern, when you talk to Northwestern about their plans,
Sure.
maybe, would they be only providing stations on their campus, or would they be?
The initial discussions were more about financial costs to help these stations in the pilot. But I would imagine that if it was successful, they would also want to purchase and maintain their own stations that were within campus. Is that your question? So in addition to the capital cost, there's also the operating costs. The City of Chicago has a contract with Divvy, which is a bicycle share company, and they pay a monthly fee based on the number of stations to manage the fleet. So not only do they do tune-ups on bikes, make sure the air tire's filled, there are some one-way trips from a transit station to a large employment center where lots of people go one way, and then if you maybe take a later train or meet up with a friend after work for dinner, you may have more bikes left at one destination. So there's a van, multiple vans that drive around and have to rebalance bikes. So that's another thing that the operating costs cover. And it's a per station cost to operate the bike. So the City of Chicago has a contract. If we were to partner in this project, we would basically partner with the City of Chicago for Divvy to manage all the bikes and be responsible for that piece. As the city manager said, there's also operating revenue that will be generated, both from the annual member fees as well as the casual user fees. And the casual user could be tourists, but it also could be riders that aren't quite ready to make the annual commitment but might use it once or twice a month. So the casual users are not just tourists. And the number that I have there is an estimate based on Arlington County outside of Washington, D.C. They have a similar program that they expanded. They actually started with 14 stations because that was based on how much money they wanted to spend. And their stations on average get 300 rides per use, which basically equates to each bike getting driven once per day. So I assumed that each bike of the 10 in a station in Evanston would get used once per day, and that 75% of those trips would be the casual user. And so that's where the potential revenue comes from. I will also mention that if we were part of Divvy, and we had a contract with Chicago, theoretically any person that doesn't live in Chicago or Evanston that becomes an annual member, Evanston could get a cut of that revenue generated to help offset our costs. Because since if you lived in Skokie or Wilmette or any of the other communities nearby, Lincolnwood, and you don't have Divvy in your community, how does the system know which bikes you want to ride? So we would help get a cut of that to pay for the operating costs. So communities similar to Evanston over time ramp up to about 70 to 80% recovery of operating costs, when this sort of shows what that might look like for the first couple of years. And then there's lots of benefits to biking in general, having additional choices for people if it's a nice day and they want to get out and take a ride, or the bus or the train's not coming for a really long time and they'd rather get on a bike. That helps as well. Reduced emissions, helping people be active. And from the user standpoint, 20 cents a day for unlimited rides is a pretty cost-effective way to get on a bike.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Ms. Ridley. When might we have the data from the bike study that we just applied? Did we apply for that, or did we already agree to it?
Director Robinson, do you want to talk about this?
Sure.
Yeah, when will we have the data in time to work with the mapping of where these stations could go, so we could determine which are the big destinations for the purpose of the bike share?
Yes, we will have some of the data from our public workshops and the feedback, and so we will set up to ask questions. And we had our kickoff just this past week, and we expect to have our first committee meeting within the next couple of weeks. So we plan the bike plan update has to be done by May of 2014. So we will have plenty of time to have all the information to.
And has it made you think differently, too, about where we're putting bike lanes and where we don't have bike lanes? For example, in some of our bigger destinations or major employers, where we don't necessarily right now have bike lanes going to them, if they're a destination for a bike share station, we might want to rethink how we're creating bike lanes in Evanston.
Well,
do they go hand in hand, bike sharing stations?
Not really, but the origin and destination, definitely the bike lanes, part of our bike plan update is designed to do exactly that. We're actually taking a closer look at where everybody is going, looking at the major employers and identifying those paths and making sure we're connecting in a way that makes sense.
So employers who are running shuttles already to get their employees from train stations to their employment, the two hospitals I'm thinking of, Presbyterian Homes run shuttles, I think, that might be part of the calculation as well.
Yeah. For sure. That's exactly, it's designed to replace an existing mode or supplement or give people an alternative.
And one of my questions, too, is about cost. And looking at just for the estimated capital and installation costs for 7 stations and 70 bikes, that's about $6,750 per bike. How does that compare to some of the other bike share programs in, similarly situated university communities? Is $6,750 competitive with those other bike share programs? Did Chicago get a good deal, I guess is what I'm asking, and are we going to be able to take advantage of a good deal, or are we being locked into a not so?
Well, you have tapped on the element that if we were to partner in this project, we would get the prices that Chicago negotiated for their 4,000 bikes and 400 stations. So in terms of volume, I don't know how competitive the other bids were. We can definitely ask for some more information about that. But because we piggyback with their volume, I think it would probably be hard to say that we would get a cheaper price at a much smaller volume in our own community. So we should be able to get advantage of this negotiated price that's already been established, plus not having to start a brand new call center and marketing team and all of those efficiencies by joining in with another program. But we can definitely get more information about.
Well, I'm just wondering what kind of deal Chicago got, and is it competitive compared to other communities, so that I feel better about us getting the good Chicago deal. Just thinking ahead on economy of scale, it would not make sense, though, to engage a different bike share program when we're looking really for connections wide and broad. So,
and in the table and the memo, there are many other of the large bike share programs that also are using the same company, Alta Bike Share, that is behind Divvy. So they are also operating the Washington, D.C. program, the New York City program. So the other really big metropolitan areas are also using the same bike and the same infrastructure.
And as to our university, they were already going down the road of exploring a bike share program, but obviously they can realize some economy of scale if they partner with us and Chicago on this. And they would simply be part of the pilot, so it would be a station located near or close to the university campus to see if that works and see if the ridership supports a station near the campus. And then the university could decide to expand it into campus if that's what made sense.
I really encourage you to do that because we need help with finding, even with the pilot, we need help.
Yeah, but I agree it's about...
It is 7 o'clock. I don't want to be rude, but we have to move on, Catherine.
I just want to show you. This is the picture of the Divvy bikes sited in downtown Evanston, so that's great. And the resolution will be authorizing the city manager for a 7-bike pilot. And there was definitely not as much time as we normally would have to put this together, but wanted to bring it forth because it sounds interesting and wanted to make you aware of the opportunity.
Let's send this to the council. It's a great program, but there needs to be a station in the south end of town. I don't care if it's a new one or one of the 7. So think about it and bring it back to us at whatever time we get.
Okay.
Yes. All those in favor of supporting the bike share pilot program, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Moving along, the next item on the agenda,
A9.
Alderman Burris, is A9.
Thank you. Move approval of ordinance 94-0-13, decreasing the number of Class O liquor licenses for Class N issuance to Whole Foods at 1640 Chicago Avenue.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Then may I move 810? Which is ordinance 95-013, increasing the number of Class N liquor licenses for issuance to Whole Foods to move the number from 7 to 8.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is for introduction. Next,
I will
Alderman
move
Holmes.
811, ordinance 95-0-13, amendments to the Howard Hartree Tax Increment Financing District.
Johanna Neiden, Director of Economic Development and all other things, is here to speak to us.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Administration of Public Works Committee. Johanna Neiden, Economic Development Manager. This is very brief, given the hour. This is before you to consider starting the process to amend the Howard Hartree TIF that is located at the south end of town. Here is a map of the current TIF. The red is the TIF as it stands now. There's actually a little piece that comes up here. Targets right here, Office Max, Best Buy, Jewel Osco. That was what was contemplated originally in 1992. And this was doing quite well at that point in time. Sure was still occupying that space, but as we know, they vacated quite some time ago, and the land is sat vacant. We have some redevelopment opportunities before us, and expanding the TIF would give us the ability to work with those prospects or any other future opportunities that came between now and 2015 when that TIF expires. So a little history again, it was established in 1992. It addressed the need for redevelopment of the property. It was a vacant industrial facility that had been partially demolished, and then another piece that was vacant. It gave the city the opportunity to bring in these major tenants that have stayed in Evanston for the entire time since they were originally established. And originally the TIF was determined blighted, and if you can remember 1992 and what that land looked like, it certainly was blighted. It was not in very good shape. This expansion, again, allows the expansion of the 222, the redevelopment of 222 Hartree. It gives us the chance to improve some of the infrastructure that's in the area, some of the utilities, and we all have that opportunity between now and 2015. And then briefly, this kickstarts the process. You're not being asked tonight to approve the TIF district, just to start the consideration of process. So we're here the 12th. And the next time this returns to City Council would be October 28th. There's a extensive noticing process that would happen. The Joint Review Board will convene on Thursday, September 11th. And then it returns on October 28th for the public hearing, where we'll go through the nuts and bolts of the TIF and the findings of the Joint Review Board. And then finally, November 11th, the City Council would have the opportunity to take up the matter to approve the TIF. Any questions?
No questions.
Any questions?
Just a comment. We had, because we had the opportunity to hear that presentation at Economic Development Committee, for those of us who were on that committee the other night, so.
For the prospective user.
Absolutely. Good.
The interesting thing about this is that it's first of all, the original TIF was a classic no-lose situation. A vacant property had to be demolished, and we had this opportunity to have a shopping center there. So almost everything ended up being increment. And in this case, this property that was not included at the time was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. And one of the things our advisors always tell us when we're talking about a TIF is there's no opportunity here for an increment. So we're not including that in the district. Well, now we have a vacant blighted building that needs a new roof and everything else, and the opportunity, hopefully, to have a user who is going to generate enormous sales tax, property tax, and retain a major business in our community. So, I mean, it's just brilliant on the part of Ms. Knight. And, yeah. So anyway, any further comments? Anybody have a problem with suspending the rules on this? It isn't to approve the TIF, remember, it's to get the ball rolling, to get the project going. All right. All those in favor of recommending introduction, suspension of the rules, and action to the committee, to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I think the rest we have already on the council agenda, and we have the discussion item, bus routes. I saw Alderman Fisk, who requested that this be on. You're not Alderman Fisk.
I know, but I'm here to discuss, to at least start the discussion, Madam
okay.
Chair, on the
Thank you.
discussion item
All right.
regarding Northwestern University bus services, and Alderman Fisk is here.
She was, I saw
We'll
her.
be back in 1 moment.
She'll be back in 1 moment. There has been ongoing discussion between the ward aldermen who have Northwestern University's bus system in their ward, Alderman Holmes, Alderman Grover, and Alderman Fisk, regarding some of the issues from neighbors regarding the bus system. We have some maps we can put up there. Jonathan, I think if we have the one base map, I think that probably is the best thing. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not going to be helpful. And Suzette, if you can get the lights, or... Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. The main concern is, if you can see on the map, the blue, excuse me, the purple line that runs along Noyes between Sherman, and Sheridan Road. Alderman Fisk has received complaints from her residents regarding noise factors regarding that bus service. That bus service runs mostly in the afternoon, evening, and early morning hours. It starts at 6 p.m. and concludes currently at 3:05 in the morning. So the concern there has been noise, because of the bus making that connection. And I apologize, Jonathan, if this has a, oh, here we go. If you can see there, it goes a long noise, goes sort of in a loop here, mostly for students that are leaving this stop here, which is the Tech Institute and the library. So Alderman Grover and Alderman Fisk had a discussion with NU probably a month, 6 weeks ago, even longer ago than that. Well, there have been multiple discussions. Alderman Grover's been part of one discussion. Alderman Fisk was part of another discussion probably 4 to 6 weeks ago, raising the question with the university, is there anything that could be done to alleviate the issues here with the residents on noise? There's one traffic signal here on Orrington. One of the concerns has been that there is the buses are stopped there, that there's an idling involved. And again, since this is a system that runs from 6 p.m. to 3 o'clock in the morning, in the late night, early morning hours is of concern. City staff met with Northwestern University officials this afternoon to raise this issue. Certainly Northwestern's concerns are is that if they're running a loop, they need to get across back between Orrington, Sheridan and Sherman one way. If you see up here, there is one periodic bus system. Again, these are all Northwestern University buses that run along Central. They certainly have volunteered to move it from Noise to Central. However, that's probably something that the 7th Ward residents aren't too keen on. There was also discussion moving it south here to Forest. It's a little bit more narrow street, and again, there are resident concerns there as well. So the way we left the meeting this afternoon was Northwestern has agreed to look at the schedule to see if it can stop the bus earlier. Currently, as I mentioned, the last run starts at 2:40 in the morning. They are going to look to see if they can stop the bus service at either 12:40, 12:55, or 1:15 in the morning, and instead encourage students in those late night hours to use the Safe Ride program. So they're going to be looking at that over the next a few weeks. The other issue that came up was the type of bus that's used. They have some hybrid buses, some of which are used on this route and some of which are not used, unfortunately, on this route. And they're looking at making a commitment that this evening bus would only be a hybrid, so they would not have that diesel engine noise or diesel engine smell that comes from that. There was one additional issue that was raised by Alderman Fisk, and that was a stop here. And Director Robinson, if you can help me, I believe it is at...
Yes, it's located at
Sherman and Noise, or
and
Orrington and Noise?
Sherman and Noise.
Sherman and Noise. And in talking with Alderman Fisk, there's been an agreement between Alderman and the university to move that to an opposite corner that would impact less number of residents. Am I describing that correctly?
That's correct.
So the university is prepared to move forward with that, and then speaking with Alderman Fisk earlier in the day, that was something that she was agreeable to. So this has been a discussion, I think, as Alderman Grover indicated, have been having Northwestern University transit discussions periodically over a number of years. Alderman Fisk raised the issue recently, specifically about noise. We think we're on the road to a solution that deals with noise, but I think it would be very appropriate to continue these discussions here at this committee rather than meetings with staff, meetings with just a few of the aldermen. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, we would propose after answering any questions that you'd have, that we would come back at your September 9th meeting with a letter of agreement with Northwestern that would help resolve Alderman Fisk's issues and any other issues that you would like to have. This, of course, will be the beginning of the school year, and they're looking to get their schedules in place for that.
I've completely lost track of the lights other than Alderman Fisk. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. This has been an ongoing problem since I've been on the council, concern for residents who live there, right at the corner of Sherman and Noyes, on the east side of Sherman and Noyes, which is in the First Ward. There are about 60 residents who are directly impacted in that half block at Sherman and Noyes. That's where the traffic signal is. And with this particular bus route that runs from 6 in the evening to almost 3 in the morning, I don't know. I sent some photos. Can we? I don't know how to, just to, okay, this is where the, you may remember I read a letter at council about a month or so ago from the neighbor who lives in this house who actually resigned his position at the university over the problems created by this particular bus route. Where the white sign is right there is where the bus route is. That is his front porch, which ends up being the staging area with students sitting on the front porch. We love the students. We're used to the students. They're wonderful neighbors, but this is causing a problem for the neighborhood. So this is a Northwestern bus stop, and then right across the street, there's another Northwestern bus stop. So we've got two bus stops within about 50 feet of each other. The bus stop across the street is I believe, the Northwestern maybe intercampus, or I'm not sure what all the names are, so that there's a large congregation of people at this intersection. So we think by moving the bus stop and consolidating those two bus stops into one on the west side of Sherman, that's going to help. That doesn't alleviate the problem on Noyes Street, though. Noyes is a very narrow street. It's a residential street. And so my hope was that we could accommodate the university by having a turnaround, if we could go back to the map just for a minute, having a turnaround up by SPAC, where the buses turn around right now, and rather than making the loop, Alderman Grover objected to them loop. I can't do that, so I'm going to let you do that. So Alderman Grover said that her residents up on Central Street would object if we made the loop up at Central Street. So I'm going to suggest that we just make the loop on campus, come down, go along Sherman, follow the regular route, but avoid Noyes Street altogether. I think that's probably the best way to alleviate this problem altogether and consolidate the bus stops on Sherman.
City manager and Alderman Fisk, Alderman Grover, anybody else who's concerned about this, is this an issue for this committee? Can't this matter be handled administratively? I mean,
Well, the reason Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, the reason it was here is I think that there was a feeling that Northwestern was not willing to make any kind of changes, and Alderman Fisk thought that an appropriate issue before the committee would be the prohibition of all buses on certain streets, including Noyes. And so the reason this became as a discussion item was the potential of leading to an ordinance, and that would be the purview of this committee.
but that's no longer an issue, right? Haven't they agreed to some kind of?
You just can't agree to something. I mean, after all, I've not been invited to any of these meetings, and part of this is in my ward. So if you're talking about moving it from the east side to the west side, then that becomes the fifth ward rather than the first ward.
Okay, but I just want to understand why it's here, because I don't. We are going to be asked to pass some kind of legislation to ban bus stops or routes in certain areas. Is that
was the
correct?
reason it was scheduled.
Okay. So
we are trying to avoid that if we can.
What's happening is, what I'm feeling that we're doing is, it's like a committee trying to pick a date for a meeting.
Yeah.
If you could come to us with what the plan is, then it would make sense for it to be here. But this is a regular meeting.
Well, and Alderman Rainey, one of the challenges we have is that this is like, if we're using analogies, it's like the balloon. You squeeze it and the air comes out somewhere else. This is not an issue of unanimity, an issue that might serve Alderman Fisk's needs, may not serve Alderman Holmes' needs, may not serve Alderman Grover's needs. And as your city manager, it is difficult to have these sort of parallel meetings trying to satisfy one alderman when perhaps this is a larger city issue. So that's another reason why it's appropriate.
Then I suggest, as the chair of Administration Public Works, that we appoint a subcommittee for bus routes and bus prohibitions from this committee, and that it be Alderman Grover, Alderman Holmes, and Alderman Fisk, and they sit together in a public setting and reach a conclusion and bring it back to us.
All right.
How would that be?
That's fine.
That way you can meet as a threesome without any issues.
If I could
Or
just,
Alderman Braithwaite, I know you want to be on that committee. I will leave him out.
if I could just briefly explain, the meeting that Alderman Grover was referring to was, I believe, the first meeting I ever attended after we came on the city council, and it was up in the engineering office with Paul Schneider. And at that point, my understanding was these were brand-new buses in the neighborhood. They'd never been there before. And so suddenly we had bus routes running through residential streets. And my understanding from staff was that this was something that we were going to try and we would come back and revisit. We've never revisited it, and I'm having a very, very hard time getting that discussion moving forward.
I'm making a motion that the subcommittee I previously referred to is established with those members on it. Could I have a second? Second. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I can't vote, sorry.
I know you're abstaining. You're not for it?
Oh, I can't vote, I'm sorry.
Why?
I shouldn't have voted, because I'm not on the
She's
committee.
not on the committee.
Oh, that's right. Well, don't
So
worry.
you now created a subcommittee where perhaps you could recommend that the full council appoint a subcommittee.
Yes, that's what we'll do.
that would be
Yes,
great.
that's what we'll do. And then you can vote on it all.
Thank you very much.
All right, hearing no other pieces of business, this meeting is adjourned, and we got to get back here right away.